Welcome to Bodies in the Post, where I speak to art makers, product creators, scientists, and revolution makers who help us rethink what it is to be human in these post-human times. Here, we get to know the humans behind the creations and their inner worlds that form the basis of what drives them. I'm your host, Lydia Kay, a researcher in this field. Hello, and welcome back to Bodies in the Post. It's been a little while. I had to take a mid-season break from the editing train that is podcasting, as much as I love it. Some of you already know that I'm in the process of writing a PhD, which is based on very similar topics covered in this podcast. And basically, I decided to start recording and launch my podcast at quite a peak time, shall we say, of my PhD. Some would call this an epic mission of procrastination and avoidance. But whatever, I'm so happy I launched this podcast. I absolutely love speaking to these creatives, and it's just massively where my passion lies. Nevertheless, I do have a PhD to finish, and recently I had my deadline for my first full draft. And yeah, I just suddenly realized that alongside my job, I'd just taken on a bit too much and I had to focus. So mid-season break was necessary. I did end up submitting my first full draft, and now I'm waiting to have my supervision, where we'll discuss whether I'm ready to go through to the next round, the next stage. There's still a lot of work to do, guys, so please keep me in your thoughts and prayers. I actually got the idea for this podcast when I was interviewing artists for my PhD. I was listening back to the interviews that I did for my research, and I thought, well, I would listen to this as a podcast. Which sounds like I'm massively tooting my own horn, but it was definitely because I just felt like the artists were talking about such fascinating things. So I started recording more podcast-friendly interviews that were slightly less focused on my personal PhD questions, but still in the same vein of thinking. So looking at artists who are really pushing the envelope when it comes to exploring bodies and art, which is exactly what this week's guest does, who is Yaz XL. Yaz is an interdisciplinary artist and designer whose work straddles fashion, film, prosthetics, and special effects. She designs clothes, she's a sculptor, she's a welder, and she's inspired by science, hybrid creatures, and futurism. So a perfect fit for this pod. She studied at Central St. Martin's, and we talk about her experience of being there during the pandemic. She ended up working from her mum's home for a year of her degree, which is where she grew up, which is right next to a farm. And we talk about how that influenced much of her animal-inspired creations. In 2022, Yaz's final graduate collection was presented at Central St. Martin's, and it was insane. Her designs made her models look part alien and part like they had organically grown from the earth or the cosmos. Her designs got a huge amount of attention and quickly went viral on TikTok, gaining millions of views. And under a year later, she was approached by none other than Bjork's stylist. And Bjork ended up wearing one of Yaz's designs in the campaign imagery for her album Fossora. Yaz now has multiple different projects on the go, one of which is creating a huge seahorse installation piece made from taxidermy horses. I absolutely loved chatting with Yaz. She turned up to the studio adorned in the most amazing outfit, which interferes with the microphone and takes center stage at one point. We cover everything in this episode, from Yaz working with Bjork and also working with singer-performer FKA Twigs, who's actually just been on the most recent cover of British Vogue, so the May 2024 issue. She's also just been at the Met Gala, wearing Stella McCartney and looking absolutely sensational, covered in lab-grown diamonds. Anyway, Yaz and I also talk about the radioactive beach-themed party that she designed for the Standard Hotel in Ibiza. We talk about placentas, we talk about condoms, we talk about near-death experiences, and we talk about our favourite sci-fi films. So we cover a lot of ground. I've put links in the show notes to Yaz's Instagram account and the place where you can buy her wearable designs, which is called Fantastic Toiles. I've also put links to some of the artists and creatives that we discuss. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed recording it. Welcome to Bodies in the Post. I've been gagging to have you on this podcast for a while, as you know.
Thank you.
It was difficult to make it happen because I was talking to you sort of around Halloween. And that you said that's your kind of busiest time of year.
That's my Christmas day, Halloween.
And you were in Ibiza?
Yes, so I collaborated with The Standard and they wanted me to host a dinner and event, and I got to fly out loads of my friends and muses and dress them all and design the whole menu. Yeah, it was really fun.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Especially designing the food, I love that. So we had like black spaghetti with squid ink in it, and then we had like a sea urchin with kind of like smoke coming out of it, and a colour changing margarita. When you like squeeze lime in it, the whole thing changes colour. So it was all very on theme because it was radioactive beach.
Oh, I see.
Theme. So
how did you get involved in something like that?
I actually just got approached by a friend of mine. She does the PR for The Standard. And apparently she was lying in bed thinking, who's cool and spooky? And then she said she just shut up in bed and thought of me.
Cool and spooky.
I was very happy to be thought of for that. Yeah, no, I like doing those kind of things. I like working with briefs as well, actually. Adapting.
Did you have quite a lot of say on that brief as well?
Oh, yeah, I had complete creative control. She was just like, you send them an idea of a concept for a theme. Maybe you might have to do a couple, but they just loved the first one I did.
And were they hosting the event and they wanted you to come in as like the creative director almost?
Yeah, and my friends.
And you got to bring your mates. I just think that's like the dream job, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really fun. Being able to ask my friends, do you want to come to Ibiza? It's all paid for. And I'm going to dress you up as an enemy or an anglerfish.
I loved the anglerfish one.
Got Earth Eater all the way from New York.
All the way from New York?
Yeah.
Flown over?
Yeah, so that was iconic. Dressed her as a slutty anglerfish, which again, like she's called Earth Eater, so I was thinking, okay, what's like a very muddy sea creature, earthy, deep sea dwelling. So I went for an anglerfish with her. Like, that was probably one of my favourite looks from there. And then we had the ammonite parasite. So that was like an ammonite fossil, which is this amazing diagram I've got as a reference, where it shows the stages of ammonites unfurling. They actually are kind of like quite wormy things. We always see them as fossils, as these coils, but they actually unfurl. So it's like it had dove in and out of the wearer's body. And so you just see it appearing suddenly and then disappearing, and then it comes out the back of the dress, and then it's suddenly on the shoulder, and then it's wrapped around the arm. And then there was the massive ammonite spiral sucker kind of headpiece sucking off of her head. That was on my friend Holly.
I love it. People can find these images online as well. I can link it in the show notes if anyone wants to have a look. Very cool. And I want to talk to you about your Central St Martin's graduation show, obviously, which was a massive success. It must have been quite weird to have this huge success straight after such an intense working period. But before we get onto the actual collection, I wanted to talk to you about your experience at CSM more generally, because you were there during the pandemic.
Yeah, I was.
How was it?
It started, I remember we all had to go home halfway through the second year. Well, I did half of second year from... I went back to my mum's house actually in the countryside because she was freaking out. She was like, the army are coming, you won't be able to get back home.
The army are coming.
Like, apparently the army was all on like the M25 in their tanks and stuff and was going to be shutting off London, and I don't know, it all got very hysterical. So I just finally ended up back home, and then I actually ended up doing probably my most favourite project that I did.
Whilst you're at home?
Yeah. So we started the project at uni. We had some tutoring from Phoebe English. It was the textiles project.
Wow.
Phoebe English has got this brand and the focus is on sustainability and...
Right. Did you pause your degree for a year then?
No.
So did you do your final year in lockdown?
No, so it goes second year and then you go on to placement year.
Oh, okay.
So I did my placement year during lockdown as well. But it's all back to normal by the time it was the start of final year. But I think just going back home, I went back to my roots, and that's why it ended up being my favourite project, because it was probably coming from like the most authentic place. And it was all about lamb and like livestock births.
So you grew up on a farm?
Well, I grew up right next to a farm. I mean, it was literally that when you look out the window, it's just like farmyard. And then farmers' fields behind you, which you can walk through. And like there's always just sheep and cows. Like everywhere you drive to as well, you just constantly see them. So
it sort of inspired you?
Yeah, probably. But also just birth is always something that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. There's a lot of references to placentas or fetuses or birthing. Mm-hmm. What's the drive behind that? What is it that fascinates you about it?
I think that really came about when my mum used to just keep all her books in a little closet in my bedroom since I was 3-4 years old. And there was this one book, which obviously was hers from when she'd been pregnant with like me and my brother. And it was about like giving birth. And I used to stay up at night and just scar myself by like looking through this book. I was like fully traumatized, seeing real photographs of like babies coming out and medical diagrams as well. But I just became fixated. I was obsessed. And I just have images of me just like sitting on the floor, just like flicking through it constantly. So I think it must have become a fixation from there. Yeah, so that was the genesis of that. But also I even went through like a quite intense sex stage in foundation. Just like I was like, I'm picking a lot of like pornography. Really put that to bed now that I felt like I worked that one out.
Put to bed.
Yeah,
Excuse the
pardon
pun.
the pun.
But that's obviously a thing because it's like, it's kind of taboo even now.
Yeah, I think when you first start at art school or whatever, I was doing foundation, I think sometimes there can be this drive to want to achieve shock value.
Yeah.
So maybe it was that. Maybe it was just, it's just the start of like becoming an adult. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Working through some things. I think I'd seen some documentaries which completely horrified me. And also I just really noticed porn's effect on people around me growing up as a teenager. It really bothered me.
So I guess it was in your orbit a lot anyway at that age.
Yeah. And I think, I didn't really have like hardly any queerness around me when I was growing up. There was quite a lot of like toxic masculinity, just small town energy.
Yeah. I know it very well.
Yeah. So I think...
You found that quite damaging?
Yeah, for sure. And I like definitely suffered from like the consequences of a lot of impacts of porn on like young boys. And yeah, I was just trying to get to the bottom of it, and I just became a little bit of an investigative journalist. Yeah, I was really diving into it, and I was looking at gonzo pornography when there's like multiple men on one woman. And yeah, I don't know, I just was really exercising those demons. But now I find like I would find it too much. I find it too much if I see it in like other people's work even. I just prefer a more like suggestive approach.
Less obvious.
Yeah.
Your aesthetic isn't that now at all from what I've seen.
It never was. It never made its way into the work actually.
Okay.
It would be more like I was using condoms as a fabric, so I was like inflating them and treating them, and then I would patchwork them all together to create this amazing textile. So it was more like, an indirect influence in the end. But the research was graphic and it was intense for sure. And now it's really not like that at all.
Yeah, so your research now, where you talked about the kind of birthing and the placenta, and there's a lot of animal references.
Loads of animal references, yeah.
That's kind of key. And even you've got loads of different practices. You do welding, woodwork, prosthetic engineering, 3D printing, and your work kind of sits between like fashion, costume, prosthetic, special effects.
Yeah.
A lot of your creations are quite conceptual, like the actual fashion items for your final collection at CSM. But you also have wearables, which are part of the Fantastic Twirls kind of collection.
Yeah, that's where I sell them, yeah.
Where you sell them. And even those, like, you've got these caps which you sell, which they look sort of like other creatures or sort of fossils.
Yeah, so that's the textile
actually or something.
I developed on foundation, which is what I was talking about. That's actually
with the condoms.
Yeah, that is made of condoms.
Oh,
so
I see.
It has made its way back around.
Okay, I see. That's good. So it's all kind of interwoven.
Yeah.
It does look like you've woven, now I think about it, you've kind of twisted condoms and stitched them together.
That's the thing. So when they like pop, they kind of like all shrivel into this amazing organic, rocky, magma-y texture. But when you cut open a condom, it's only as big as, what is it, like 3 centimetres by like 7 centimetres. It's tiny, so you have to patchwork them together. So it's a lot of work, those caps. And it's a long process. But I was also patchworking condoms together for the livestock birth project. I was saying that I did the first project in lockdown, but this time I was just dyeing them and I wasn't treating them, and making this kind of placentary texture, which I then made into an actual garment. But that is not a very durable textile. I left it in the sun. I didn't really understand that you couldn't leave it in direct sunlight. It completely
shrunk.
It went into goo, actually.
Oh.
It's very weird.
It's weird. I would have thought it'd dry out.
No, yeah, they completely almost melted.
It's also you're really experimenting with finding unusual materials, and it crosses over a bit with like biotextiles. Obviously, condoms are not biotextiles, but your designs, a lot of them, they look. Well, let's get onto the CSM graduate collection, which I wonder if you're like a bit sick of talking about it, because I'm sure you're on to
I haven't talked
things.
about it in a while. So
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Because it was this massive success. You were graduated in 2022, and by March, Bjork was wearing one of your designs. You'd gone viral on TikTok. You'd been nominated for one of Dazed 100, the annual platform spotlighting 100 voices from across the world who are changing culture. And I was like,
that was
wow.
a nice surprise, that was.
I mean, for anyone hoping that their collection is going to make a big impact, that is exactly the kind of thing that you're hoping for. The collection itself, there's this kind of merging of Futurism with these natural looking materials. There's kind of wood print that is a theme that kind of runs through them. There's kind of very sculptural forms. They look like they're kind of from another planet. These other beings, they look either worldly or alien, but they also kind of look like they've grown out of the earth. So there's this real mix of like organic with the futuristic. And you had these incredible shoes, which were huge, voluminous shoes with lights in the bottom that shone out. It looked like the model was levitating.
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely like
the
fantastic.
levitation boots.
The levitation boots. And a lot of your designs, like some of them look like they're made with silicone, and they've got these kind of balls coming out of them that leave a sort of hole, again, which kind of makes me think of like space and black holes and things.
Yeah.
Are these the right reference points?
There was so many references which went into my final collection, and I spent too long on the whole thing, to be honest with you, to the point that it was a weird one. I think one of the main things that happened was I spent almost the whole time in the welding workshop, and I made this kind of vehicle, I guess you'd call it, because it had wheels, and it was a support for under the long dress. So what would happen was the main model would be wearing the long dress, the one that Bjork wore, and then underneath that she had a harness on, but the harness is all completely hidden. And then it looks as though there's another model floating above her, levitating above the train. And I basically took inspiration from, the street performers in Soho that look like they're floating.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll be holding like a pole,
yes,
one stick, and it looks like they're floating,
levitating,
cross-legged in the air. Yeah, the idea was that this model was going to be walking down the runway. There's this secret vehicle underneath her dress, underneath the train. And then there's another model floating above the train, looking like it's kind of erupted from the opening on the train.
Like a volcano.
Oh, are you following?
Yeah, I think so.
So there was an opening, like vortex hole on the train.
Okay.
So the print of the dress was warped wood veneer. So it was like all these lines.
It looks like the patterns, like when you cut a tree in half.
Yeah. And then the idea was that the wood grain opened up, when you get like the knots in wood grain, and spat out this second model, and she was levitating, above the train. So it was a lot.
It's so theatrical.
To engineer that whole thing was crazy. And then 2 weeks before the show, I think it was, we learned that actually the runway was going to be this metal platform with stairs. It was a 2-story runway.
Oh, shit.
So my whole world
came
crashing down, and I was,
You must have been devastated.
Yeah, I was actually. So I had to adapt the whole dress. I wanted to still make it look like the train itself was slightly hovering above the ground, because it was no longer going to have this support of this flat vehicle.
And you made the vehicle yourself? That was through the welding?
Yeah, I completely welded it.
So you lost a lot of time.
Oh, God, yeah.
Through doing that.
Yeah. There was just so many techniques that I went through, and then I would get bored and then move on to a new thing and then move on to a new thing. So I should have just really probably had less time.
Have you ever done the Enneagram personality test?
No.
It's really fascinating. But I come out as a number 7, which is called the enthusiast. And one of the things in my personality trait is that I start stuff and I get bored and I don't finish stuff. It can be really good because it means you're really interested in loads of things and you can get loads of skills, which it sounds like you have developed loads of skills. But it means that we have a hard time finishing stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly me.
Yeah.
I'm probably a 7.
Probably.
Is it linked to human design?
What, the Enneagram?
Yeah, human design, when they take your birthday and...
I'm not sure. I don't think so. This is quite an ancient one. And there's I think there's 9 numbers, which makes it sound really simplistic. Like there's obviously not just 9 personalities, but depending on your number, you branch with another number.
Oh.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
But my dad actually showed me it and he's very scientific.
I'm definitely going to go and do that.
It's really good. And actually he said to me, read through it. I've done what you're not supposed to do, which is tell someone what you think they might be, because the person has to figure it out themselves. And I've read all of them through, and you have to read them all through to make sure you know which one you are. And as I was reading them, I was like, no, this is not resonating at all. And then I got to 7 and I was like, oh shit, it really quite shocked me.
Yeah.
Because it says all the good bits about you when you're in a really good place, but it also kind of talks about what you're like when you're in a really bad place and really destructive place.
Yeah, the cold hard truth.
And reading that was really quite confronting. I wasn't in the best place when I read it either, so that didn't help. I was like, oh no, this is what I'm like.
Yeah. Well, breakdowns create breakthroughs. So
yeah, that's true. Very true. But I think that kind of personality trait of trying lots of different things, it can, particularly in the art world, it means you have loads of strings to your bow, which has really kind of shown through in your designs. Like making a vehicle for your collection, even though it didn't come through.
I know. I just want to learn like every craft possible, and I'm trying to be very strict with myself now to try and like
stay focused.
Yeah, stay focused.
How did you get into welding?
I just wanted to do something which is not stereotypically like a female thing.
Does it make you feel powerful when you're doing it?
Yeah, it was good. I try and pretend I'm like this big burly builder, but it was actually quite tough. It's a lot of work lugging all that steel about constantly. And also the way it was in CSM was I couldn't really leave it downstairs in the welding room. So I had to make it so that it deconstructed as well. So that was another thing. It was like adding in all the screws and like bolt holes and everything. So then I could put it in my like tiny little thin locker.
Oh God.
And then
it's a feat of engineering.
No, it was. I literally did a whole engineering.
So did you have a bit of a breakdown after that?
No, I didn't have time. I was pissed off for sure.
But you just got to get on with it.
Yeah, I just had to adapt it. And they let me show it whilst people were queuing for the show. And I was just like, oh, okay, I'll just take what I can get. And that actually, someone from FCP was just like taking loads of mini TikToks.
What's FCP?
Fashion Communication Promotion. And he just posted a quick video of the vehicle thing working because it was walking around like doing this little presentation whilst people were filtering into the show. And then that just suddenly like blew up and got like 23 million on TikTok. It's probably way more now because I haven't checked in months, but my name wasn't attached anyway. So.
It wasn't attached?
No, it's not his fault because he was just doing millions of TikToks.
Yeah.
And it just suddenly lifted off.
Also, I think anyone who was actually interested could easily find you after the show, couldn't they? Because it was online.
Yeah, probably.
But it's a shame you weren't attached because you probably would have got a lot more followers.
Yeah. But also, I don't really want to attract the kind of mass internet TikTok energy because it comes with a lot of
pressure.
Yeah, and like trolling and things. And I'm just not interested in people who they're not fully committed to the cause. Yeah.
But they always say no press is bad press.
No, exactly.
So you got a lot of press, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And the show itself, can you explain a little bit about your designs?
Yes, so the silicone look, that was like fully sculpted in clay first, both the jacket and the trousers. So that was sculpted on a mannequin for absolutely months. And then we made a mould of it, do a silicone layer and then fiberglass. That was a massive feat. We had to drive it somewhere first, carefully, this clay sculpture, because you can't do fiberglass like inside your living room, which is where everything else was happening.
Because it's got the, obviously the tiny fibres are actually glass, aren't they? So you can't.
Yeah, but also the epoxy is just like so obnoxious, it's horrible. Basically fiberglass matting, so it's a sheet of woven glass strands, which feels like a kind of fabric, and then you impregnate it and layer it and soak it in resin, and that's what makes it combine together to become this very hard.
Right, and is
material.
The resin really quite toxic?
Yeah, it's like polyester. It's awful, it's horrible. I had like a near-death experience with it once actually, which I can go into.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was with polyurethane foam. Again, poly, anything poly you don't want to be breathing in really, because that's plastics. So yeah, that was then cast in silicone foam, which is not toxic. So it's kind of this like light, it's almost got like a jelly texture. Like when you smack it, like
it wobbles.
Ripples like a massive piece of
looking
flesh.
At it, I'm like, the trousers look quite robust and solid, but the top,
it's sponge actually. It's like a sponge in a way. It tears.
Yeah,
it's very delicate.
It looks quite delicate, but the arms of the top also look quite strong and structured.
Yeah,
it's very sculptural. Have you got a background in sculpture?
Yeah, at school I was obsessed with realistic facial portraiture. I was just basically trying to become like an old master at it. I was obsessed with faces and depicting emotions.
So was that your first like craft that you developed?
Yeah, for sure.
You can really see in your collection that you've got this eye for like forms and sculpture.
Yeah, 3D in general. I just love anything that's tactile.
I know that you do a lot of fashion items, but it's almost like you falling more into the category of artist more broadly and you're using the body as a canvas or a medium.
That's exactly why I ended up doing fashion on foundation. I was trying to do that the fine art pathway, and then the fashion tutor on my foundation had just graduated from women's wear at CSM, and he was like, no, come on, do fashion, you're so good at it. And I was like, no, I want to do fine art. Oh, sorry, I just hit the microphone with my balls. Oh my God, the balls I'm wearing.
Can we explain the balls you're wearing? You're kind of wearing like, what they look almost like part of a jellyfish.
Well, I made them for this party I went
off.
to on the weekend. It was meant to be an opium den themed party.
Oh, I see.
So they're
like little poppy seeds.
And then all the little threads hanging off are roots. So they're like rooting poppy seeds.
Oh, I see. So they're kind of hanging off your skirt like a belt almost.
Yes, I'm wearing my hybrid trousers, which I sell in Fantastic Toiles.
And you've got them wrapped around
trousers, half skirt. So then I just hook them into the belt loops, and I've just, because they've got wire in them, you can just bend them at the waist, and it's keeping it together like a kind of anti-belt. But yeah. So
and you've also got the poppy seeds like wrapped around your
hand and
your hand
into a ring.
Yeah, a bit of a stress thing to fiddle with something.
Exactly. I need to fiddle with something. I didn't think about it when I put it on, but I'm actually glad I have it, because you know when you're on the phone to someone and suddenly after an hour you hang up and you're like, why am I
in a knot?
Yeah, no, you'll be like, why am I on this windowsill holding a feather wrapped around a stick? And you just found these random things, but you just create these things when you're not thinking and talking.
Yeah, well, I like your balls, your black poppy balls. Also, there's balls feature quite a lot in your designs. There's a lot of kind of spherical.
Yeah.
And actually, one of your CSM designs, like I said before, you had these kind of holes in the clothes where the balls look like they come out.
So that whole thing of the balls kind of erupting out of holes, which features on the silicone jacket in a smaller way. There's loads of little hole openings, and there's balls that look like they've levitated. And then on the main dress, there was a ball on the wrist. It's embedded into the dress. When you hold your hand up, looks like it's risen out of this vent hole which was embedded onto the hip of the dress. I guess it looks like opened up into a portal. And again, it happened on the train of the dress. You've got that like portal vortex hole which has opened up. The model's being spat out of that. So it's this abstract representation of birth, trying to like still exercise my obsession with birth but not doing anything that's a baby, you know. The ball is a human. It's like the most redacted version of a human. Like, it just represents it. It's like the egg. It's the universe. It's a cell. Like a ball represents so many things in the natural existence. So
yeah, and also the reproductive system, obviously female egg, but men's testicles. Like
yeah, no, literally balls are everywhere. Yeah. Once you start looking in biology and things.
Tell us how you had a near-death experience.
Oh, so that was when I was in lockdown. I think I was in my placement year by that point. I taught myself how to do special effects prosthetics. So I was learning how to make molds. I decided I wanted to cast my own shoe. So I loved how Kanye had just done this like foam shoe. The foam runner was just like one mold, you inject it, and it was just suddenly like this amazing flexible shoe. So I just wanted to experiment with making a high heel in the same respect. So I carved this heel out of clay, made a mold, and then, okay, now I just need to get some foam. But it has to be, it's foam you get in liquid parts. You mix it and then pour it in the mold. But I had only been working with silicone, which isn't toxic, really. You don't have to wear a mask. So yeah, I didn't use a mask and sat in that room for about 5 hours eating pizza. I was on FaceTime to my friend, like waiting for it to cure. And I would have normally put the windows open, but it was snowing out and it's very sensitive to temperature. So I had to sacrifice the ventilation because I needed the temperature to be up. I don't really know what I was thinking. And then I went to bed and it was like 4 a.m. by this point. And I woke up at 6 a.m. like gasping for air. And then I suddenly like panicked and I looked at the data sheet of the product I'd used and they put like causes cancer in the state of blah, blah, birth defects, shit. And that. And I just freaked out. I was like, birth defects? No. Oh my God. Because I just like really obviously want to have a baby one day. I've literally got a whole Instagram file on my phone that says baby. So whenever I see these like amazing birth stories or like birthing techniques, I like file them.
But it's weird. I mean, in a weird way, that links as well. If you're really interested in bodies that like morph and change, you're probably quite fascinated. That idea of like growing a baby inside you.
Oh yeah, no,
and your body
totally.
morphing.
Your body being the ultimate sculptor.
Yeah.
Inside the womb. And it's funny because the molds I use, you call it the mother mold and you're reproducing something. So it's again, very links back.
It's all linked up.
Yeah. But anyway, it turns out that the foam vapours, they're denser than air. They filled my lungs. And then because they're so dense, they wouldn't come out with normal breathing. So they were just lying in a thick layer in my lungs. And this doctor was like, you were effectively drowning.
Oh my God, that's so scary.
Yeah.
What did they do to
then
get it out?
they were like, it was COVID. So they weren't answering.
That sounds like quite an emergency though, doesn't it?
No, it did. But also I was like around my mum and my stepdad, and I was like, oh no, I really didn't want to go to a hospital or be in contact with anyone who'd been with people who had COVID. And my mum's like quite neurotic. So I was like, I don't want to wake her up because she's going to freak the fuck out and make me even more freaked out. And then I was like, oh, but what if I just faint and smack my head? And that was just awful. So I eventually woke her up, and then she rang my stepdad, and he was like, it's fine. If you're really poisoned, you'd be throwing up. And with that, I just went out the window and was throwing up. And we ended up going on this long walk in the snow. And me bending over and throwing up on the country roads in the snow was actually allowing the vapours to like come out because because I was upside down. So they almost function as a liquid.
And this is a dumb question, but you can't see them coming out, can you?
No.
Like expelling this stuff, like some kind of exorcist.
Oh, God, yeah.
I love how your stepdad was like, oh, you'd be being sick, and immediately you're vomiting.
Yeah, and then they were like, oh. But now I'm quite conscious about using these materials. I've really earned so much respect for manufacturing during that process. Like, you can dream up as crazy a design as you want, or even we were trying to keep it simple for manufacturing purposes, but then there's so many things you've got to think about. It's crazy.
And you need a lot of money, and you actually need a lot of bodies to help with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not conducive really to fashion, which by nature is fast paced. And
it's so fast.
It's all about change, and that's
my problem with fashion, the pace.
I was going to say it doesn't really work with your designs because even taking all of that manufacturing out of it, they are like pieces of art. They're pieces of sculpture. They're not stuff that you really want to or could mass produce.
Yeah.
Definitely not that. The silicone trousers and top that we were just talking about, that's not something that you can produce en masse. Mm-hmm. And also they kind of look more like they're designed for like a film set or theatre.
Yeah, I'm not sure that many people would want to wear them, to be honest.
Or to an event.
Yeah.
They're definitely like...
But then once one person's worn it, the
no one else
novelty's worn off anyway.
Yeah, but that's kind of like, there are designers doing that. If you think of, Iris van Herpen, for example, it's couture, but it's very much like for the red carpet, for one-offs, for film. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of thing you can see yourself going into? For sure, yeah. So I've actually been wanting to move into film. I have been since I started doing film costumes in my placement year. But I'm moving into more developing my own film. Start there. As a director? As everything. So you're doing the story, the plot, like everything? Yeah, I actually think I'm going to start reaching out to some like friends soon in terms of the text and the plot. I've got general moments that I like dream up, but they need to be like fleshed out more, and I definitely want to collaborate with people on that. But the whole story, the costumes, the music, the score, the environment, the sets, the whole production design, I need that to be my vision. Like, I just crave that. So I'm going to have to... You're going to have to do it. I have to do it. Yeah. These kind of intense projects as well, it's kind of what the art and the fashion world is built on, is these really intense working periods. Mm. But how do you find it in terms of maintaining good relationships, maintaining good mental health, we spoke really briefly before we started recording about like not being able to eat when we're stressed and, that kind of constant adrenaline. Do you kind of feed off it? Do you think you can find a healthy way of working like that? Oh, that's literally what this year's been about. I've been really like tapping into my like wholesome life energy and trying to find a sustainable way of creating. But it keeps cropping up time and time again that I just realise that my best ideas are coming out under complete pressure the night before when I'm knackered. It's so annoying. It's really annoying. I do my most creative work when I'm under immense pressure. Mm-hmm. And we were saying when you're hungry, or when I'm hungry, when I need a wee, anything urgent. You forget to go to the toilet, and then you're like, oh, why do I feel so jittery? And I'm doing so many good things right now. And it's like, oh, typing really quickly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I definitely haven't found the answer at all, and I really hate the fact that I'm going to have to push myself there again at some point soon. I know, because kind of squeezing bits of work into like 2 hours in a day when I've got time just doesn't produce anything that I'm really proud of. And it's a healthy way of doing it, and I could produce a mediocre piece of work, but I don't want to produce a mediocre piece of work.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
So you haven't found the answer yet, but you're trying.
I'm just trying to think if I found the answer. No, not when it comes to like complete magic moments. It's always in an unhealthy environment. But it's not that unhealthy. Like I'm not in a crack den, and it doesn't involve like loads of substances and stuff. Like a few sleepless nights. Like not like the 90s. I don't know. It's like a small price to pay, I think.
If you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe or press the follow button to get the new episodes. And take a second to like, rate and review the podcast because it helps other people find it. You could also share this episode with someone who you think would enjoy it. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, obviously your fashion is one thing, but you also make these amazing creatures, like mythical creatures that kind of use taxidermy.
Mythical is my buzzword.
You don't like that word?
I don't like the word mythical.
Okay, so they're not mythical.
Well, no, a lot of people say it and I know why they say it. And I don't have a thing against mythology. I'm trying to tread very carefully with this project because I think the context around it is very important. So yeah, I think you're talking about the seahorses, the taxidermy seahorses.
The taxidermy seahorses, yeah. And also your Capricorn.
Yeah, so again...
The Capricorn is quite mythical, isn't it?
So that's a horoscope. I guess horoscopes are mythical, are they?
I guess mythical creatures are creatures that don't actually roam the earth.
Right.
So
I suppose they just have it's just
because the
one
creatures
of those...
you're making definitely don't roam the earth.
No,
but they're kind of...
it's a fair enough word. It's just
you don't
I find it can be associated with a certain whimsical. I don't know. It's just slightly.
You've got
throws the energy of it off kilter. Yeah, exactly.
That's fair enough. I think of mythical creatures being like the most exciting creatures.
No, I love like the story of like the Minotaur and like Medusa and all of that.
And also the half man, half goat. What's he called? Is it called a faun?
Like Mr. Tumnus. No.
Yeah, he's one. I think it's called a faun, where it's half man, half goat, and then half human, half horse is a centaur.
Yeah, centaur, that's one for sure. And then there's a mermaid. See, this is the thing, like mermaids are incredible when you get into like, would you say folklore? I suppose like a lot of the old like research into it. But some things get completely done in society and it's always that pink plastic holographic mermaid. So then that gives me the ick.
Right. You want something that's more unique.
I'm trying to go for this hybridization feeling and I'll just start from the capri-baby, which is the half goat, half fish.
Fetus.
So yeah, we did a fetus Capricorn baby. So that was for Twigs's campaign for her album, and it was meant to be like...
It was FKA Twigs. It was the album
Capri
Songs.
Yeah. It was the intro to the album. It was like, she's a Capricorn. So this Capricorn fetus was like inside her. She was like brewing it. And then like she FaceTimes it inside her belly. I was lucky enough to get landed with that job, which was after I just started teaching myself special effects, prosthetics and stuff. So I really like made a meal out of that in a good way. Like I loved it. I went to town and I got to take my time completely. So it had 3D printed lungs and heartbeat inside the chest. So it looks like it's breathing. I incorporated all like the veins down the body because I love veins. Absolutely love veins.
Well, it does look really realistic.
Thank you.
I've seen it in a video of it, like
that's
breathing.
The goal. And then the tail had like fibre optic strands. You know how like there's fish bones that support a tail? Those fish bones were actually made out of fibre optic strands, so they lit up on the fin part. Yeah, and the tail actually twitched as well. It was kind of animatronic.
Did you think up the capri-baby?
No, that was Twigs and Aidan Zamiri. But it was such a marriage because it's everything I loved. It's like fetuses and me and Twigs were going absolutely crazy in lockdown talking about like horoscopes and stuff. So it was just very apt, you know?
It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's like a really weird synchronicity.
And also it had a goat fetus, tiny cutout left over from my textile project about the Lamberts that had been sitting on my laptop for the last year before that. So it was just like I manifested it.
Yeah. Also, there's this weird connection between FKA Twigs' style and your style. Like, I can see why they chose you because they could see that the style worked, the aesthetic worked.
Yeah, for sure.
Did they just find you online then?
No, I was already like hanging out with Twigs and Aidan, so they were just chatting about it. And I was like, oh, I've just been learning all that. Can I make it? And they were kind enough to let me do it, even though I hadn't really proved myself in like that field before.
Do you feel like you proved yourself after that?
Yeah, I loved that little baby. And then so to do that, I decided I needed to get like a full handle on like this baby goat anatomy, and because a picture can only do so many things. And I learnt that when I was doing all my sculpting, you need a full real thing to reference from when you're trying to achieve realism. So I think I'd already had Simon the Stuffer on Instagram.
I love Simon the Stuffer.
Yeah.
Simon the Stuffer Wilson.
Stuffer.
He's a taxidermy specialist, right?
Yes, he's a taxidermist. He used to do animal training for like films, and now he just does taxidermy and animatronics for films. So if they need like a horse hanging up in a scene, he'll just make a soft mount taxidermy horse or something. But yeah, I just randomly reached out to him and I was like, hi, cold call, but you don't have a goat fetus by any chance, do you? And he was like, yeah, I've actually got 2 like stillborn baby goats in my freezer, I think. Yeah, so
again, synchronicity.
Yeah, but he's got everything in that freezer. So I drove down to Hemel Hempstead.
I love that he didn't just have one, he had 2.
Yeah.
I got 2 little fetuses in my freezer.
Yeah. But because they were stillborn, they weren't completely, they weren't fetuses. But
the one that you created,
that's
the
how we met.
the capri one, is fully formed almost.
Very nearly. It just needs to get its hair and then it would be ready to be born.
Yes, and it's kind of the front half of it looks like a teeny tiny little goat, and then it's got a fish tail.
Yeah, and it's got its little arms with its trotters on the end, but no legs because that's now a fish tail.
Did you make it into a bag?
Yes, because I wanted Twigs to have a version for it, but I didn't want to give her the actual capri-baby and be like, here, please put this like weird graphic fetus somewhere in your house and make her feel obliged. So yeah, for her birthday, I recast it in black silicone foam and I embedded some crazy hardware and some like gorgeous like furry leather as the straps. So yeah, that was just using the same mold. But yeah, so that was how I met Simon. And then he reached out after I'd made it and he was like, I'm so impressed with what you did with the fins and stuff. Do you think you could do the fins for this seahorse I started like years ago? I don't know what to do with it. And it was in quite a bad way. It was like very like moth bitten and stuff. Yes, it was a taxidermy horse, which he had like cut into the shape of a seahorse.
Right.
But
that's the one there's images of that on Dazed.
Yeah. So
it's huge, actually.
It's massive.
It's absolutely huge. It must have been a massive horse.
Yeah. It's probably 9 foot.
It's insane.
Yeah,
and you've got it like hanging.
Yeah. So that was in my studio. That was what I did. As soon as I graduated, I just did that for a year. I was completely burnt out and I just moved back to my mum's. I didn't want to be in London for a while. Got this amazing studio amongst all these like different makers in the village and just had this taxidermy horse hanging up. And I basically said, I'll take it on, but I need to also change some things. So then it became a collaboration because before he was just approaching for me to just add some fins, leave it the way it was, and that was it. And I was like, no. We're not adding whimsical fins to make, because then it would feel like slightly in mermaid territory for me. I needed these like bobbly Siri, I think they're called Siri or Kiri.
Oh, like the little
they're these
horns
bobbly
almost.
Spike things that adorn like the whole back of a seahorse.
Come out of the spine.
Yeah.
Or the vertebrae.
Yeah.
Now I'm connecting as well. This is going back to the reproduction and pregnancy, and that male seahorses are the ones that carry the babies.
Yeah, that was it. So then we did this one. I had it for a year and I was doing all the sculpting and casting all the fins and stuff on it. And then I had to patchwork a lot of the fur to like change the form because I wanted to make it pregnant. He gave me like spare skin and I like cut open the stomach again. Obviously it's just you're working with leather at this point and foam. It's not like gory. And yeah, I kind of like rejigged the taxidermy, built out the tail, put in new eyes, found this amazing eye maker in LA who does like all the stuff for Hollywood like films.
They did some realistic
some
eyes.
Custom, well, I wouldn't call them realistic. They're kind of like red. I wanted them to have a flash. I absolutely love it when you use flash on animals and they get the red eye or the green, that horrible glary eye.
Like if you shine a torch onto like a field and all the sheep's eyes.
I live for that. So I wanted to get that. So we put a mirror slot where the pupil of the eye is in a horse. That's actually a dark mirror. So that the idea is when it's finally in a gallery and people will take photos, it will get that effect. It will reflect out in the same way that a real animal eye does. So much detail
that you've gone to as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about all those little bits.
I can't help it. I just really,
Well, I think that's what separates, separates the wheat from the chaff. When it comes to artists and creators, like we were saying about pushing yourself, I think that you clearly think about all those details and it becomes your world while you're doing it.
Yeah, it makes it a lot longer to undertake. I really just can't help it. I try and block out some things. I'm like, no, it's fine. People don't notice that, but I notice that. So I have to
Yeah, and also they do, like, as well, as lots of people won't, but there'll be lots of people who do.
Yeah.
And the people who you were saying, you know, people taking pictures of it, if it's in a gallery space, they will notice the eyes. That'll be kind of an extra little special
hopefully.
effect.
I was even playing around with, like, you know, that material 3M, which reflects.
Like UV, yeah.
Yeah, so when it flashes, it really goes like...
Or high vis, not UV.
Yeah, high vis. But might do that in the next Seahorse's Eyes, because we've done a second one now. And we've done a foal.
So you're making a collection of them.
So the second seahorse is giving birth. So the male seahorses give birth, which is why I really undertook this project, because that just, I don't know, that subversion, and the actual birth scenes are just stunning. They eject.
They sort of pop them out, don't
They kind of convulse really fast, and they kind of contract back and forth, and all these tiny little seahorse babies just eject out in this cloud. So the second one we've done, which is this black and white, gorgeous patchy one, it's much more pregnant, and it's called a cloaca, that's the opening to their pouch. And so it's like cloaca.
Bit like the holes in your designs as well.
Yeah, again. Yeah, the vent holes. And then now I'm going to be working on, I've started sculpting all the different baby seahorses and all like these frozen in time of being shot out of the pouch. And they're going to be levitating all up and above and out of this.
It's amazing. It's so
male
cool.
Seahorse.
Where is it going to be shown?
Well, I haven't actually got that far. There was this art dealer who was walking around my studio when I lived back at my mum's, and he's a massive art dealer / he owns a gallery, and he was like, if you can make me 8 of them, I'll exhibit you in New York. So
do it.
Yeah, but that could just be like gas and air, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that just reminded me of my final collection was called Hot Air.
Okay.
So it started off all about people lying, and hot air, you know that saying, it's like, he's talking a load of hot air, and hot air
it's
rises.
Like all talk, no action, basically.
And hot air rises and expands. So that's where this levitation energy came from.
And the balls that come out of the dress that look like they've been protruded out. It's like coming like a hot air balloon almost.
Exactly, yeah. And also, as I said, it rises and expands. You see like a few times in the collection where there'll be a sphere, but it's been split open. So it's like the pressure of the heat rising and expanding is inside a sphere, and it just cracks the sphere into two. So and again, it's like the reproduction, like when cells divide and...
Yeah, it all connects.
Yeah, it does all connect.
It massively does.
Yeah.
It's clear where the inspiration is.
Yeah.
Also, I think a lot of artists and fashion designers like go looking for inspiration, and they're like, okay, we need to think of like some key inspiration and references, but you're not really looking for them.
They're attacking me.
They're attacking you. They're all around.
Yeah, no, like as I said, there was too many references that I was just batting away, like trying to whittle it down, edit. But there was just so many crossovers and all these different sub things.
And it's like biotechnology feels quite key to what you're doing as well. One of the designs sort of lit up the body. It was almost like...
Yeah, the silicone trousers, there was cob LED lighting.
Looked like the body was kind of glowing.
Yeah, and I put it coming out of some of the holes as well, the portal holes.
And your shoes, the levitation shoes, they were sort of lit as well. And again, it makes me think of like alien, otherworldly creatures from another planet, but it also makes me think of biotechnological engineering that we're doing now. One of the interviews I did with Joe Zayner, they experimented with fluorescent jellyfish DNA.
I love that.
And injecting it into their own body.
Yeah.
They didn't actually glow, but they were like, it would have been really cool if I glowed.
It would have been very cool, yeah.
But I think when they test with it, it's one way of like seeing what they can do with different genes. And when they experiment with like the sperm of a dog, let's say, they inject this fluorescent jellyfish into the dog, and they can see it in the sperm under a microscope. They can see these like glowing sperm.
That's incredible.
So then it's like, well, one day maybe we could produce like a glowing dog.
Well, I've had the glowing rabbits on my mood board for absolutely years.
God. What, as in actually glowing?
Type in glowing rabbits.
Glowing rabbits.
Or glow-in-the-dark rabbits.
Scientists breed glow-in-the-dark rabbits. 2013.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Freaking ages ago. As part of an effort to improve treatments for life-threatening illness, a team of scientists have created rabbits that glow in the dark. Oh my God. Rabbits of a litter of 8 that went from being a normal fluffy white to glowing green in the dark. That is amazing. You had those on your mood board.
Oh, they've been there for years. Yeah.
Is that why some of you wanted the models to be glowing?
I don't know why I'm so attracted to putting lights on things.
But it's very
camp.
futuristic.
Yeah, it is futuristic. I think I might have itched that scratch for a second. I'm trying to resist
Scratch
lights.
that itch.
Yeah, itch that scratch. Oh.
Is that a word you're okay with, the futuristic?
Futuristic, yeah, for sure.
Maybe that's why you're not so keen on mythical, in that more that you're interested in creating creatures that are actually something that could happen.
Yeah, rooted in reality is quite important to me. There's so many films that are amazing and like are fantastical and stuff, but my favourite ones is when they make it make sense in the current reality. So
it feels tangible.
It means you can relate to it. One of the reasons I fell in love with the whole like special effects world and costumes was I started looking at all the behind the scenes pictures, and I just really lit up when I saw like the Predator costume.
Behind the scenes of which film?
So like Predator, for example,
Okay.
Alien versus Predator. When I say behind the scenes, I mean the making of. So the people that made like the costume, there'd be the guy just sculpting or airbrushing the Predator costume. He's just wearing some random like Guns N' Roses t-shirt, cup of tea on the side, messy studio in the back. And then you suddenly like realise, you can suddenly compute how crazy this predator creature is because it's in the context of reality. But when you just watch Alien vs Predator, it's completely, I don't know, unrelatable for me. It doesn't light me up as much.
As much as...
Like, so The Cell.
I haven't seen that yet.
The Cell is crazy because
I really want to... That's on my
stunning.
list. I have to be
Go
in the right
watch.
mood. It's an older one now, but Ex Machina. That really lit me up.
That's gorgeous, yeah.
Because it was beautifully done, and it was really connected to like art and the power of art on the human, and it was just so clever and believable the way they did it. And she was so beautiful, the actress.
Oh yeah,
Alicia Vikander.
Alicia Vikander.
She played Ava, but she trained as a ballet dancer in her kind of youth. I watched quite a lot of the behind the scenes for Ex Machina. It really talked about the way that she moved was like not quite human.
True, yeah.
And it wasn't robotic. It was like more, it was better than that. It wasn't like our idea of like rigid robot movements. It was like fluid and like
creepily
perfect.
Smooth rotations.
Yeah, it was like more perfect than any human could do it in a way. There's certain films that like just...
I love Arrival.
Arrival.
That is the same director who did Dune. That's amazing. It's these giant black egg pod things just suddenly arrive on Earth. And they're dotted, like there's 8 dotted around the whole globe. And there's just these amazing alien creatures inside, which are these like black, squiddy entity things. And they make this crazy, like deep vibrato sound. And then they end up communicating with them because these black, squiddy, ghosty things can actually write with these symbols by squirting this like ink out of their hands.
Oh, it's really squiddy.
Yeah, it's quite squiddy. But they're also
in
like
a cool way.
No, but they're also like tree-ish. They're all quite
Yeah.
crusty.
Oh.
But you don't really see much because they're in this like fog the whole time. It's
Love
like
that they're
very
crusty. They've really gone against the norm of the normal alien.
No,
Crusty
they're not.
alien.
I don't think you can call them aliens. They're like entities.
But that's why I love, again, it's kind of what you've done in your collection. It's like drawing from futuristic elements, but also natural elements. Mm-hmm. So connecting to the squid and like the action of squirting, like the squids do.
Yeah.
I reckon it puts us more in a familial state with it because it's something, like you say, it's not that we can't relate to
digest it.
Yeah. Because it's something familiar.
But also just the fact that then they then show like the military base and stuff like that. Then I'm like, it just suddenly...
What, you lose it?
No, I find it.
Oh, I see.
Because you see the...
I find it. Because it's based in reality. Yeah.
And it suddenly then can relate back to like human. Avatar, amazing because it's like, it's almost not tangible.
Well, it's like an LSD trip.
Yeah, but it's also,
Avatar.
it could happen.
Yeah,
like
well, it already is.
They make
in
it
a way.
make a sense.
I think it's like when I say it's like an LSD trip, I mean, it's like looking at the world through psychedelic lens.
Yeah.
So it's not actually far removed from reality. It's just a different way of looking at it, in a sense.
No, exactly. Yeah, Avatar is also one of my favourites, even though people love to hate on it.
Just because it's a blockbuster, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I watched Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future the other day.
I watched it as well.
Really? Yeah.
Literally, like,
and everyone was
ago.
like, "Oh, you've got to watch it." So you. And I was just like, "It's to me. I don't want to look at it."
You know, back in the day when people were really into a band and then the band got big and they'd be like, well, I liked them when they were small.
Oh,
and they were a
yeah.
smaller band and you don't really like them when they're a big band
Yeah,
anymore.
so it could be that.
Maybe you just
The
feel like it's
obstinate
your
side,
thing
yeah.
and you don't want people to take it from you.
I don't know. I just like to look into random places that are very far from my world.
Yeah, I get that. The Cronenberg film, I think it was meant to make us feel uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable, but I also felt quite budget. In a way, I think it was supposed to be. Like, obviously, they would have had the money to do special effects, but they chose to have this really clumsy, clunky machine thing that he was lying in. It was cool. It was just completely not what
It feels more
I was
homegrown.
expecting. And it feels like I can almost see the person who's made that prop, you know, almost in the background.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
And that, for me, I was quite surprised by that. I quite liked that element of it.
Well, yeah, I like that because I really get turned off when I see too much CGI.
With that, you could see it was real.
Yeah.
But the whole premise of the film is certain people have evolved, spoiler, to have certain organs that can digest plastic, but they grow organs.
That would be good for me and my
Yeah, that's true.
casting.
It's too late for
Yeah.
that. But they grow these new organs that then they're like a performance duo.
partner, yeah.
A part of their futuristic performance is that she cuts the organs out of him live.
And pain is always pleasure. It becomes pleasure, doesn't it?
Yes, and then he sort of discovers that these organs are actually quite helpful because he can't eat and swallow properly anymore.
Yeah. I'm awful though. I didn't even give it even a proper chance, to be honest. I would be like watching it whilst I'm cooking and then pause it and then finish, you know, then do another section the next day. Like, I really,
Yeah,
that's such a
into it.
disrespect. I really shouldn't have done it like that.
Just going back to the film stuff, because the fashion designs I can really see like on film sets, but also creating props.
Yeah, well, I'd put all my things within my film. So I'm making like creatures and I make objects and props. And I've been making sets in my own house, just in my bedroom, as in just to make my bedroom look like a set.
Is the picture on Instagram your bedroom with the like white sculpture?
Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I thought you'd made it for a set,
No.
like a film
So
set.
that's in our bedroom.
That's
so
amazing. It's
that
like-
came out of need also.
I can imagine now it probably doesn't look like how I saw it and that you've probably made it functional, but
Oh, it was functional.
it's functional, but as in it, you've probably got stuff on it, whereas the picture is just empty.
Yeah, there's a few like things in the display areas, in
Yeah.
the little pockets. And,
It's
like,
so
there is
beautiful.
something so beautiful in just like having it empty, these like empty shelves and things.
Yeah.
But no, we've got like some books in there and stuff.
It
but
looks like the inside of a cave.
yeah, it's quite cavey. It's quite Gaudi. I was kind of also going for Geiger, like
Geiger. God, you're giving me all these references. that I
H.R.
don't know.
Geiger he did not the production design, but he designed all the
Swiss
environment for
artist.
Alien
Oh, yeah.
and the Xenomorph. He designed the Xenomorph.
Yes, like really kind of twisted
Yeah.
creatures.
But I felt like I had to do that, to be honest, because there's this massive glass desk in our bedroom and I just needed loads of space around it. But I'm not going to like put loads of different units there because that would upset me visually. So I was like, we have to blend them all into one and then it has to blend into the wall. And then I just got carried away and I was like, we can put a projector screen in it that rolls down and then it just has this like magnetic secret part which comes off and then that's where the remote lives. And then it's like, yeah.
I'm assuming, so this is a room that you share with your partner.
Yeah.
And are they fine with it?
Now they love it. But yeah, it was quite a like running touchy joke. Like, I live in a building site. Thank you.
Because I was going to say it's beautiful now, but I'm
Yeah.
sure to get to that point, it was pretty
No,
chaotic.
I was doing it on and off for like 6 months. I mostly use stuff I found on the street and things. It probably cost like maximum like £150 to do that because I took so long because I was like waiting for the right pieces to come up on Facebook Marketplace and I just refused to spend loads of money.
But
I'm very resourceful.
it looks, I mean, can I say it looks expensive?
I think it looks expensive.
I think it looks really expensive. It looks like a sculpture that's filled your room, basically.
Yeah.
But it's also very functional. It's got like nooks and crannies and things for wires and things for a light and things for
Oh yeah, it's
a
got
desk.
embedded lighting, embedded little areas like I put USB, like a condominium
condominium.
of utility and beauty. But everything's got to be functional for me. Like I don't like people to suffer, you know, as a result of like something I've made. So even like things like shoes.
They have to be comfortable.
Or, yeah, if I'm asking a model to put something on, I've got to really think about it because I'm very like sensorily alive.
I really want to ask you about Bjork. I mean, like I said before, it must have been such a kind of shock to the system, going viral on TikTok, getting approached by Dazed, getting approached by Bjork. All of that must have felt quite surreal.
Bjork is a funny one. I now understand the severity of it being Bjork.
Oh, was she not on your radar?
She wasn't
so much?
really on my radar.
Oh my God. Wow. That's even cooler though, that you were like, yeah.
Oh no, like I knew it was like iconic, but it was just an accident. I do that all the time. Like I miss very iconic things. They just skip me. And yeah, one day I just learned this crazy person or film. People are like, how the hell have you not seen that? Like that is the most you thing I've ever seen.
Well, I was going to say Bjork feels like a very you
Right,
thing.
yeah.
And she's really...
Maybe that's why I resisted it. I don't know. When I say
when
it,
you say
I mean
surrounding
Bjork,
yourself...
Diva.
Bjork, the entity of
yeah.
Bjork. When you surround yourself with stuff that's part of your aesthetic, I kind of thought she'd be on your radar in a sense because she's very, like she had a whole album called Utopia, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's merging with animals, merging with technology.
Yeah, it feels too obvious. For me, I really appreciate her, and now I've actually fallen in love with quite a lot of her music because
her music's amazing.
Yeah, and I think she's absolutely incredible.
Wore one of your dresses in one of her
campaign, and then I lent it to Edda, her stylist, who's also Icelandic. She was so lovely. It was such a unique experience with such a massive celebrity as Bjork, having a stylist who is so respectful. She was got on the phone with me and she was just like, we only pull a couple of things that we are certain she's going to wear, and she just said she's going to wear it, and she did, and she stuck to her word. And that is so unusual because normally
they borrow stuff and break it and send it back.
Someone of that level, they'll have a warehouse full of absolutely hundreds.
Yeah, it can be, and it can be really disrespectful the way they treat the clothing.
Yeah, and I've had that experience as well with, I won't say the name, but one of the biggest stars of the whole planet. So I wasn't that phased because I thought, oh, it'll just be the same and not get worn. So you learn to not get your hopes up when these things get pulled for stars. I've had it a lot and it's not surfaced. But then suddenly I was just on my way to this party and I was wearing my levitation boots actually. And then I suddenly got tagged in a picture, and it was the picture of Bjork wearing my dress in Leicester Square on the billboard.
Wow. Oh my God. Whoa. That's a real pinch me moment.
Yeah, that was a really good moment. And then I got to meet her as well.
Oh wow.
Where did you meet? She asked me for a custom version of it for her, which is more wearable. I'm so stupid. I have a block with stuff like that. I never followed it up. Probably still could to this day.
It's probably not too late, yeah.
I just
Bjork,
got...
if you're listening.
I just got a block with the whole thing, and I was like, I'll adapt this one for her, but I don't know.
Do it.
Yeah, that's stupid of me, but she was so lovely.
And one of your collaborators and people that you work with is Tilda Mace.
Mm-hmm. She's been my best friend since we were 12 at
school.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking that you worked really well together.
No, we've been literally joined at the hip, living at each other's houses since we were 12. And we lived together during my final year.
And she did the makeup for your collection?
Yeah.
And she did the makeup in Ibiza, is that right?
Yeah.
With her work, do you see you guys collaborating for future projects?
Oh yeah, I think we'll always
be
friends, and it will always be there as long as she remains a makeup artist. She's always got a job with me, and we speak the same language, so it's a natural.
Yeah, you definitely speak the same language.
Thing, so.
There may be people listening who'd like to buy your clothes and buy your items. You've talked about Fantastic Toiles. Can you explain that briefly for us and what it is?
It's a shop and collective directed by Nazim Azar, and we pop up in different areas of London every 2 months. We completely build the shop ourselves. Yeah, it's on for a weekend normally, so it's only for 2 days. So you just got to keep an eye on the Fantastic Toiles Instagram page for the next flyer when it will be.
I'll link it in the show notes for people who want to have a look.
Yeah, no, it's a really fab place. It's just completely unlimited, unbounded creativity in there.
I also like that you pointed out to me before that Fantastic Toiles, you like that because it's kind of, a toile is like a experiment still, in a sense. It's not a finished product.
Yeah.
And obviously you are selling finished products, but the idea is that they're experiments.
Exactly. It's just the pressure of usual garment expectations is completely released in Fantastic Toiles. It's not about can you sew a perfect welt pocket or this or that. It's, don't want to add a zip, bung some weird piece of wood on it and just a bit of string and you're done. But obviously everyone does things within their own complete style and energy, and it's one of the most authentic and integrity fueled places I think you could buy from ever.
And it allows you as a fashion designer as well to experiment and have that freedom of honing in on stuff that excites you, I guess.
No, exactly. Just exercise little moments that you want to work through, and any experiments you do, you can just quickly adapt them into something. And people just sometimes want a piece of your world So it's nice to be able to just
Give them the condom
cap. And give them a
condom cap.
Yeah, exactly. And I was really trying to also find a way that I can adapt my world into a more wearable way without completely like watering down the whole intention behind it.
There's a corset that has, for example, tubes on it that's kind of got red liquid in it that looks like blood, for example, where there's
that
still
was after
this
watching
merging.
Mad Max.
I loved it. But there's still a definite merging of ideas of biotechnology and future bodies. But it's, like you say, it's like a tangible, obtainable item that you could actually wear to the club or just out and about.
No, exactly. And it's been so amazing actually seeing people like wearing the things out in the world. And it just like connects you to people more, because it can be like very lonely just working on your own things, and or just you can get stuck in your world. So it allows me to like step out of it and translate it back into like how other people would wear it and what's realistic.
And we were talking a bit before we started recording about you yesterday being at London Fashion Week and seeing one of your friends' collections, and you know, we've talked a bit about that fast-paced fashion environment, and that's not something you can really see yourself in.
No, it's not. I think it's disrespectful to everyone involved. All the designers, everyone that works there. People put so much intention and effort and energy into these collections, but it's such an oversaturated place as well. There's no attention span. It's so like, okay, next one, and then it's not for me. I would rather work on something for 2 years and like really like flesh out everything, the smell of the environment as you walk in, what marketing you're going to do for it, obviously the whole actual collection and all the pieces and the set. And I think now
that's what
it's
makes
just
you more of an artist, I think.
Yeah, I think art does work a lot more slow, and the art world allows a lot more breathing space.
But it understands that that's what it takes, I think, as well.
Yeah.
There's a respect to the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it does take its toll on all of these designers. If you speak to all of them, any of them, most of them will say like, you got to sacrifice sleep, your mental well-being,
relationships,
love. Like, it's just not worth it to me. I don't know why we all enable it and encourage it, and it's just getting faster and faster. And I just was like, oh, drop me out. I don't want to be a part of that.
I think it's so good to know that, for sure.
Yeah, it's a hamster wheel.
Yeah. And
sure.
Where were you yesterday? You said you went somewhere really fun.
I went to go see my friend Paolo Casana's show. He's in Fantastic Tours. That was beautiful. I saw from the pictures because I didn't actually get let in because I was 10 minutes late. Stuck in row works. But anyway, I hung out with all my friends from Fantastic Tours after, and then just ended up at Dover Street for this event. And I got to meet so many icons that are now in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And
who was it that you met?
I was with Princess Julia, and then Whitaker Alum, who do amazing leather work for like sci-fi and music videos and stuff. It was just nice to be around a different energy. They seem to have like a more of a slower respect as well for fashion, not caught up in this like fast TikTok vibe, you know.
Part of your tribe.
Yeah, definitely part of my tribe. But that's what's so nice about Fantastic Tours, is everyone that comes and every customer is like, it's a tribe.
Yeah, you attract.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe, that's it.
It's never a good idea to try and fit into something that's not flowing authentically. You've just got to follow your own flow of attraction, as Michelle Lamy said. That really lives in my head rent-free, that saying.
Follow your flow of attraction. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Coming on Bodies in the Post. It's so great to chat with you, finally.
Yes.
And hear all about your art. And I just absolutely love what you're doing.
Oh.
I feel like there's so much more to come. I'd love to come and see the seahorses when they're...
Yeah, of course.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd love to see you there.
And I'll make sure I put your Instagram in the show notes, and hopefully people will come and find you at Fantastic Tours.
Yes, come find me. Buy some magma condom caps and hybrid trousers.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Bodies in the Post with Yaz XL. And thank you to Yaz for such a fun conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show for other episodes with artists and designers who are working with post-human themes.